What does it mean to take a stand in world history? It means to fight for what you believe in or what you think is morally just, defying the restraining circumstances, whether that be opposing viewpoints, people against you, or even the law.
In learning about the history of the world and how it changed over time, Nelson Mandela is often someone who can be recognized for bringing about the huge and positive changes in South Africa. Who was Nelson Mandela?
Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was a South African anti-apartheid revolutionary, politician, and philanthropist. Throughout his lifetime, Mandela, alongside several South Africans, fought against the racial injustices of the apartheid. But what was the apartheid?
Under apartheid, non-white South Africans were forced to live in separate areas and use separate faculties apart from white South Africans. Contact between the two groups were limited by law. The government even prohibited marriages and sexual relations between whites and people of color races. The Population Registration Act of 1950 provided basic framework for the apartheid by classifying all South Africans by race.
This legislation split families because parents could be classified as white while their children could be classified as colored. Land acts set aside almost 80% of the country's land for the white minority, leaving the majority of the population to live in poverty. Laws were also passed that required non-whites to carry documents authorizing their presence in restricted areas.
To limit contact between the races, the government established separate public faculties for whites and non-whites, and denied non-whites participation in national government.
Mandela was taught since his youth in a tribal civilization the importance of being a leader. He used those key principles instilled in him to unite and guide people, to work towards a safer place with equal opportunities for all people, especially the non-white South Africans who were segregated against. In an attempt to see change, Nelson Mandela attended meetings of the African National Congress, where he began a youth league to approach the problem in a new way.
Nelson Mandela led and supported several peaceful protests to combat the segregation of the apartheid. One notable protest is known as the Sharpeville Massacre. On this particular account, police opened fire on a crowd of 5,000 unarmed peaceful protesters, killing 69 and injuring over 200.
This event caused Mandela to abandon his nonviolent stance and seek other ways to find justice. The Sharpeville Massacre led to the banning of political meetings or gatherings, forcing Nelson Mandela and the ANC to work underground. Despite the new laws set in place to avoid chaos and protest, Nelson Mandela never gave up or stopped working in his fight to end the apartheid. He was later thrown into jail for conspiracy to overthrow the government. He suffered under terrible conditions. He was malnourished or underfed, isolated from others, and forced to work in a quarry. He stayed in a tiny cell in which he slept on the floor and used a bucket for a toilet. His imprisonment and life sentence angered many, including South Africans, black and white, and people all over the world, who placed pressure on the South African government for his release. After serving 27 years in prison, he was finally liberated.
For the rest of his life, he served his country in joining forces with the South African government to end apartheid and change South Africa. On May 10th of 1994, Nelson Mandela was sworn in as president of South Africa. Winning the country's first universal suffrage election, he focused his presidency on undoing the horrors of apartheid.
We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. We commit ourselves to the construction of a complete, just, and lasting peace.
After serving one term as president, 81-year-old Nelson Mandela retired. Even today, he is still known as an important figure in South Africa and an inspiration for standing up for what is right.
Mandela taught people that with patience, persistence, and dedication, one can achieve any goal. He took a stand and never gave up to gain equality for him and more than half of the South African population that was treated wrongly against under the apartheid.
He is now a respected figure not only in South Africa but by everyone all over the world.